Hello.
Hi.
So this is Zac Fink-Cambria, who wrote Frew Tape, 1982, and you just shared with me that Penelope was in your Theory 1 class at Peabody.
Yes.
So I love that. So Penelope was one of the performers here. So Zac, can you talk to us a little bit about the inspiration behind your piece and how the legend of the Chesapeake Bay sea monster influenced your
Absolutely.
your piece? Yes.
Yeah. I first want to just say thank you so much to the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society. They're putting on incredible concerts and also just like have beautiful, beautiful community outreach. If you guys aren't familiar with their work, I encourage you just to check out online. They're doing really good stuff. So, Frew Tape 1982 is based on this really grainy footage from 1982 that was handheld recorded by Robert and Karen Frew up the Chesapeake a little bit. And this footage depicted this mysterious serpentine, just kind of like underwater shadow that undulated in ways that they couldn't quite identify what was going on. The Smithsonian and Johns Hopkins, like scientists, like really looked at this video and never came up with an answer of like what the heck this 30-foot thing could be. And I just felt like that had so much musical content and inspiration of we have this underwater shadow that is frightful in some way. We have this shimmering water that the sun's just hitting the Chesapeake Bay in a beautiful way. And then, we just have like a lot of this fluid serpentine motion, whether it's between the water or between the actual Chesapeake Bay monster kind of moving in and out. And then there's another layer of like, we have this really grainy footage, so we can't quite see what's going on. But then once we kind of like in 2025 turn up the resolution and kind of figure out what's going on, then we can also see this monster and all of its terror and glory.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that the peak of America's fear of underwater unknowns was in 1982. So can you talk about why?
Yeah. So obviously Jaws came out in 1975, I think, and terrorized the whole generation.
It's true. It's true.
And then on top of that, we had like the rise of handheld recordings. So then we have these really grainy footages of, Bigfoot and any other cryptid. And so you put on top the fear of everything underwater with these mysterious video footages, and it creates a good bit of terror.
So did that affect the emotional arc of how you wrote Frew Tape a little bit?
Yeah. So I think the piece really for me is an uncovering of really diving into the tape, and at first we can hardly see what's going on. There's these kind of dark shadows under the texture, and then eventually it becomes revealed throughout the piece. I think the whole narrative arc of the piece is turning up the resolution on.
So how do you accomplish that? Going from like sort of obscured to revealed.
Sure. So you'll notice when the guitarists come out, they have a preparation on the guitar by the bridge. One of them will have a piece of paper threaded through the strings. The other will have a piece of tinfoil threaded through the strings. And those two guitar sounds are going to sound really un-guitar-like, and you will not quite be able to make out what's going on. So it's like the musical representation of all that grainy footage, and it can move higher and lower on the string to kind of reveal what the guitar is actually playing. And then eventually it gets removed and we can hear and see all of what has been going on underneath.
I'm guessing that you found sort of that ambiguity kind of liberating as a composer, right? Like to try to represent the graininess and of the tape itself.
Definitely. I mean, in a way, the piece kind of wrote itself, because once you have, Stephen King talks about when he's writing, he has really interesting characters and a really interesting setting, and then he throws them all in a situation and doesn't work out what's going to happen, but just how do they play off of one another and what happens. And I feel like this piece, the setting of this grainy footage and having the underwater shadows, the shimmering water, and just different serpentine motions all kind of just made itself apparent.
Yeah. It just worked. Yeah. Had you written for guitar before? I'm curious how you found this technique.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I had not written for guitar. My first instrument was guitar, though.
Okay.
And I had never written for it. I started on my mom's classical guitar.
I knew I liked you.
She was a kid. And I had her guitar when I was in middle school. It had been in a case since I was in middle school. I switched over to the upright bass. And then I kind of came home musically to her guitar and wrote the whole thing playing her guitar from the 1960s. So it was kind of really special. So every musical figure I played and transcribed, and that's great. That's just great. Through a lot of experimentation, found ways to obscure the sound.
I love it. Yeah. So I read that you have a background in writing a lot of chamber music and electronic music. I am curious, writing for classical guitar duo, if you found yourself ever sort of trying to emulate any electronic textures or effects or things like that.
Yes and no. I definitely the opening of the piece is creating a lot of white noise and kind of just noisy sounds that are more common to electronic music and the soundscape possibilities that are limitless. But also at the same time, I feel like I had no clue what I was doing starting the piece, and that's kind of fun to come to every piece feeling like you know nothing about it and just rediscovering, reinventing the wheel. And that creates stuff that I wouldn't have thought about doing if I was writing for any other situation.
Right, yeah. Do you feel like, and I guess I'm curious, do you feel like sort of this experience has helped you evolve your own compositional voice? Do you feel like you'll be exploring, other urban legends to compose about in the future?
Possibly. I mean, definitely the experience of writing for guitar and just having fretted instruments or instruments that have, because I'm an upright bassist, I can hit a billion notes between one note even. But for example, guitar and piano have a fixed, I only have so many notes that I can hit. Yeah. And just having that limitation and figuring out ways to break out from that limitation has kind of expanded my creative brain in a new way.
Interesting. Yeah. Limitations, I think, often spark the most creativity. So what would you like the audience to take away from listening to your piece today?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. There's a lot of shadows under the water. And I think just being able to take 10 minutes to not run from the shadows, to look into the water, while also still looking at the beautiful water shimmering, the sun coming off the Chesapeake Bay. Being able to hold all of that at once just is a very human experience. So I hope that people walk away feeling human.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear Frew Tape 1982 by Zac Fink-Cambria.